Is China going to win?
I hope not. I really do hope not. But here's the thing. If you're looking at this through the prisoner's dilemma, there's only one winning outcome for the United States. There are two winning outcomes for China. So you've got win, loss, and tie. Those are the three outcomes of any conflict. If the United States wins, then China loses. That's the only winning scenario for the United States. Because if the United States ties with China, then that still means that the United States has lost its role as the global superpower. It now has to share the superpower role. It has essentially reached parity with China, equality with China, which means every other country in the world has an equal choice whether they want to choose the United States or China. So the United States only has one winning outcome. Whereas with China, China wins if they tie, and China wins if they win. So it's really a race to see who's the largest economy in 2033. That's what all economists are saying right now. 2032, 2033, well before 2035, who is the largest GDP economy? Will it be the United States or will it be China? And China's strategy has been to grow their own GDP, but also to grow the collective GDP of the BRICS trading bloc. Because the more they grow their trading partners, the more they grow their own internal GDP.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but China's looking like they're going to have some success there. The only thing I don't like about it is the concept of freedom. And I think it's pretty clear. And again, I do want to ask you about democracy versus, I don't know what you'd call it, autocracy. But, you talk about freedom. I mean, China has rolled out its own CBDC, and the rumor has it is that it's pretty scary and it's pretty oppressive. We already know about their social scores, but if that's locked into a digital currency that can be removed or censored, that's a scary thing. The U.S. was started on this concept of freedom. Whether it exists now today, it's questionable. But this is a fight for the future of not only freedom, but digital freedom and property ownership, but digital property ownership. And by the way, both of those go hand in hand. We're pretty deep in the blockchain crypto space. And one of the first things you learn about that space, which is quite fascinating, Andrew, is that you learn about property ownership. And Bitcoin, for example, if you are able to own your Bitcoin, own your digital property, you have freedoms associated with that. If you can't own your digital property, your identity, your browsing history, your data, you actually don't have those freedoms, and you pretty much turn into a little bit of a Marxist society. And so I'm just curious, I mean, this is the fight, I think, between those two systems. Do you see it as that black and white or not?
I don't see it as that black and white. I see freedom. Freedom is a marketing message that, I mean, originally, if you think about it, the first settlers to come to the United States were pilgrims, and the world believes that those pilgrims were running away from religious persecution in the United Kingdom, in what was England at the time, right? That's the whole foundation for what every elementary school kid thinks is true about the United States. These poor victims of religious persecution bravely sought out a new life in the new world. In reality, the pilgrims were contractors that signed a contract with businesses in England to come to the United States to basically create a foundation of exports that would go back to England. And in exchange for them making the trip and becoming essentially the first businesses in the new land, in exchange for that, they were given property rights in the new world. It was a business exchange. That's what the pilgrims were. They weren't victims running away from religious persecution. Some of them were also, persecuted because of what they believed, but that's not why they left to go to the new world. They went to go to the new world seeking economic benefit, seeking some sort of business growth. Right out of the gates, the first people here had no freedom. They were indentured. They had committed themselves to a contract. They had obligations. Since then, the United States has grown on this promise of freedom, but the real freedom that they offer is a freedom between your individual life and the state itself. Like what our free speech. Free speech is a fantastic example. We can say anything we want to about the president without having to worry that the federal government is going to take us and send us to jail. But if I talk shit about my neighbor, that's actually illegal. That's called fighting words. That's an aggression against my neighbor. And he can sue me in a court of peers for that offense. So our freedom is very much dictated by a governing rule of law, and that rule of law is dictated by a panel of publicly voted legislators and overseen by a panel of judges that are free to interpret the law however they choose to see it. So again, if you really think about it, freedom is poorly defined, and freedom can change from season to season. So what is it really? Really, it's just kind of a marketing message. We have more freedom than some countries because we can carry a gun, and we can speak out against our leadership, where if you're in Thailand, you go to jail for speaking ill about the king. So we have certain freedoms other countries don't have. That means that we are more free than other countries, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have freedom.
I appreciate that. I want to think about that some more. I'm going to spend the month of January in Dubai, and I just also spent a week in Singapore. And I look at these two countries that kind of have a single leader, which has laid out a vision of the future that's maybe 50, 100 years long. And they've executed on this vision and limited some of the freedoms that might have been handed out to some quote unquote Western democracies. And they've achieved some incredible results, enough to a point where it makes the West look broken. It makes, to a certain extent, London and the US look like a joke when I go to Dubai. And yeah, they don't have two parties that are yelling at each other on the screens, but you also don't have broken transport systems, broken criminal systems, knife crimes on the streets, broken public housing systems. You've got incredibly functional governments, places I would rather be a part of. Places in a weird way, like you said, Andrew, I feel freer somehow in these places, or I feel like I've been given something, like I've been given a chance to make money there and not be taxed. I've been given a chance for the government to support me in what I do, as opposed to here where they're trying to tax half my income. Again, freedom can be taken away in many ways, right? And so I'm drawn to these places that technically aren't democracies, and I'm starting to see much more value in these places. Is it weird that I feel that way? I'm sure you visited some of these places as well. And is this continuing, I don't know what the right word is, maybe blurring of lines between democracies and autocracies going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate your question, man, because it's one that I've seen not just myself, but I've also seen with many of my wealthy clients. And the way that I describe it to people is that what you're seeing, what you're witnessing, and what you're feeling is very similar to what lots of wealthy people are feeling, because the real measurement of freedom is income. If you have wealth, you have options. And as long as you have options, you're never fully trapped. So what ends up happening to wealthy people, myself included, as I've crossed into the realm of more wealth, right? As I've crossed into the net worth in the millions, now I understand what many of my clients have been talking about for a long time, where they ask themselves the question, is it wrong that I'm an American running an American business, but I would rather live in Spain, or I would rather live in Greece, or I would rather live in Portugal or Dubai or Singapore, where theoretically it's less free than the United States, but it's a better fit for me. And that is the only reason that you and I get to have this conversation, is because you have enough wealth that you can choose where you live. You have enough wealth that other countries can reward you for the wealth that you bring to them. The vast majority of people don't have that kind of wealth. So they lose the option to ever leave. I mean, think about it in the United States. I'm sure you remember, there are people who can't afford to leave the city they live in. They can't afford to leave the state they live in. And we're a country of 50 states. They can't go from Texas to Louisiana. They can't go from Mississippi to Virginia. They just can't afford it. So those are people who do not have options. Without wealth, you have no options, which means without wealth, you don't have the freedom to make real choice. So in my opinion, I am in the same boat that you are. I look at the United States and I look at where the United States is going, and I am hopeful, but I'm not banking. I'm not gambling on my hope. I'm also preparing secondary and tertiary options. I want my children to have options. So I'm building a foundation of wealth for them and for me. Because in the end, I don't want my future to be exclusively dependent on the choices that that are made by the elected officials of the United States when they can't seem to even pass a budget for longer than 6 months at a time. That's, if you or I told our bank that we couldn't maintain a credit card balance for longer than 60 days, our bank would drop us. Somehow, we have a Congress that can't manage to pass a resolution for longer than 45 days. And yet we're stuck with them. To me, that's not what I want to gamble my children and my grandchildren's future on. So we're looking at other options too.
I appreciate you saying that. One thing you have given your children, and I've given mine, is American citizenship, and comes along with that is a global taxation for the rest of their lives.
True.
I mean, as we go further ahead into the future, that whole concept really probably begs some real questions, you know, when you talk about freedom and what you're getting for that. I'm sure it's something you've thought about, because you could move to other countries, but you know, as long as you're globally taxed, there's not that much benefit. If you're a UK citizen, you go to Singapore, you'll get a lot of benefits of that, but not as an American.
Correct. And the other thing that's nice is, as an American citizen, you know, you always have the option to exercise your rights as an American citizen when those rights are what you want to protect. And you also always have the right to give up your American citizenship. So if for some reason we do see the United States completely fall off a cliff, if my grandchildren are adults in a time when the United States doesn't serve them, as long as they have some other citizenship, they can just choose to just drop their American citizenship, right? And it's an opportunity that doesn't exist for every country.
One thing I would say is that I remember watching like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I'd see these digital nomads come on and these social influencers, and they would say, I'm a global citizen. And I'm like, yeah, you're a global citizen till the shit goes down. And then we're all going to go back to our tribes. Like you see in prison, you're going to go back to your kind. And that's when the war gets played out. And so it's very nice to talk about renouncing citizenships in a current stage, but there could very well be a future where you will have to probably go home. And maybe that's the place where only place you might be protected. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think there's a third option that people don't often talk about, but really exists. And if you've ever been in a war, you know what the third place is. And the third place is neutral ground. Because really, in any conflict, there's the oppressor, there's the aggressor, the defender, and then there's a whole lot of neutral ground. And that safe haven is oftentimes a very viable third option for people. If you were talking to me in my 20s, I would tell you all day long I would fight for American freedom and for the beliefs and the ideals of the American ideology forever. Now, as a 42-year-old father of 2 children, now all of a sudden I care much more about what the ideals actually mean. And if the United States chooses to go to war with somebody, I may not jump in the ring. I might choose to pack my children up, exercise one of the options that I have being wealthy now, and relocate to Norway, Sweden, Austria, who knows what, right? Portugal, Spain, Greece, and be out of the conflict altogether. If you live in Costa Rica, nobody points a gun at you.
Yeah.
So, right, that's an option that we have that not everybody has.
And that's only if you have the wealth. Let's just be clear about that. So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions.
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.